everyone, it's Mrs. Walsh. Today I'm going to show you how to use measuring cups and measuring spoons in the kitchen. I have a few examples of what measuring cups look like. This is what we would measure with. They come in different sizes. They fit into each other like this. Starts with a quarter, a third, a half, and then a cup. These are some measuring spoons. They as well fit in each other like this. We start with the biggest one, a tablespoon, half a tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, half a teaspoon, a quarter of a teaspoon, and 1/8 of a teaspoon. Sometimes if you were baking, you could also use measurements like these. You might find these in the kitchen. So to show you how I would use a measuring cup, I'm going to use flour. Doesn't matter what you're doing when you're cooking, if you're following a package or directions from a cookbook, they all require some form of measurement. If you just look on the directions, you'll see what I mean. Each one has some sort of measurement. When you're cooking, it's like a science. You have to use the correct amount of product so you get a nice finished result. So let's say I needed a cup of flour for maybe I was making bread. So I would fill, this is a cup, I would fill it to the top, making sure I have plenty of flour. That would be measurement for a cup, 1 cup. I would put that in my bowl. And if I was baking, this is just colored water just to give you an example. If I was baking and I needed, let's say, a 1/4 cup of oil, I would take my measuring cup, 1/4 cup, fill, let's pretend this is oil. I would fill it to the top. That would be my oil, and I would put that in my bowl. That's how we use the measuring cups. Remember, we use everything depending on what our recipe calls for. That's how we choose what we need, and then we measure correctly and put it in our bowl. Let's say we needed a spice, and I needed half a teaspoon. My recipe calls for half a teaspoon. I'm going to look on my measuring spoons for half. There it is, half a teaspoon. I would take my teaspoon, stick it into my spice, fill it to the top like that, put it in my bowl. That would be my half teaspoon that I need for baking. Let's say I needed 2 tablespoons of water. Again, this is food coloring in my water. This is what 2 tablespoons would look like. I would pour my water to the top. That's 1 tablespoon. Now how many did I say I needed? I needed 2, so I have to do the exact same thing again. That's 2 tablespoons. That's what that would look like. If I needed just a small amount, the smallest amount would be 1/8 of a teaspoon. Let's say I needed that for my bread. So let's pretend this was salt. I would stick this in here. Look at that small amount, 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's how we measure. This is how we measure in the kitchen so that we follow our recipes, follow our directions on our packages so that the food that we like to cook comes out correctly. And that's how you measure in the kitchen. It's Mrs. Walsh. I thought it would be fun if I showed you how I feed my dogs. I have 3 dogs. I have small, medium, and large. Large is Riley. Simon, come here, Simon. Medium is Bailey. Small is Simon. Now that you know how to measure things out in the kitchen, I thought it would be fun if you saw how important it is for me to measure out their food because they eat accordingly to their size. There's no way that a small little dog can eat the amount of food that this big dog eats. So I have to measure out their food. So Simon's the little one. He's very small. He's 8 pounds, so he only gets 1/8 of a cup of food. That's how much I feed Simon for dinner. Bailey is twice as big, and she gets a 1/4 cup of food. 1/4 cup, I measure her food out, and that's how much the medium-sized dog gets. The large dog, Riley, because she's a bigger dog. I give her a cup. This is a half a cup, so I'm going to do it twice. There's half a cup, and when I add another half a cup to her food, that becomes a cup. This is the amount of food that she eats. And so see how important it is to be able to know how to measure, because if I accidentally gave one dog more food than they needed, they would get sick, they would be overweight. So it's important to know your measurements, especially for me when I'm feeding my pets, because it's based on their size and what their body can handle food-wise. So small, medium, and large. This is why measurement is important to know for me feeding my dogs in the kitchen. Thank you for joining me when I feed my pets.